Welcome to the Nintendo Engineers. I'm your host, Chris Tysus. It's the NNN show, and we are talking about George Floyd, um, the protests, and the police brutality. Now, as you know, this has erupted all across America at the moment, and a lot of people are talking about it, about the man who was murdered by the police officer. Now, I know there's a court of law and all that sort of stuff, and innocent until proven guilty. But I would say that the video that many people have seen and the autopsy, the second one, the one that actually was more legit, probably suggests that this man is not going to have a very good life from now on end. I think his life is pretty much over, regardless of what happens. And obviously, when that happened, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back for the African American community in America. They've been dealing with a pandemic of COVID-19. Police brutality has been happening since forever. It never went away. It just pops its head up over and over and over. And this has led to the bubble sort of bursting, and you're seeing protests in all 50 states and all that sort of thing. And it's difficult for me to do this video. It's like, what can a white guy in Australia really give advice about, And I can't, I don't have any first-hand experiences of police brutality. I have seen some of it, on video, online, one or two times in real life. And I think my only advice is to really listen to, African Americans and really hear their stories and try to understand their point of view, which is basically a basic human right. And try to just really listen and try to understand and, be more proactive in protesting about this sort of stuff and saying that this is wrong. I think if you're silent on these matters, and we're doing this on a Nintendo channel, I know other Nintendo YouTubers are sort of been a bit on the wall, on the fence about talking out, and some have spoken out a little bit, and others haven't, and it's been a little bit weird like that. But we've talked about political stuff before, not in terms of racism and stuff like that, but I've always, I'm a left-wing person. I believe in equality for everyone and all that sort of stuff. And just looking at America at the moment, it's not at a really good state. You have a pandemic that's taken over 100,000 lives. You have these protests. And the riots are mainly started up by people who sort of blend in the crowds and sort of try to make out that it's the African Americans that started it. But we know that that's bullshit, and that's totally not the real story. America also has a president who is woefully unprepared to deal with any major crisis. He is absolutely a racist. Pretty much he's anti everything. He has to be removed from office. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's other dictators and people and other world leaders that we can talk about that should be removed. But I think for the sake of America, and seeming that a lot of other countries rely on them for help and for trade and things like that, and just their own people are living in misery. Tens of millions of people have lost their jobs. He needs to be removed and probably tried for probably a number of crimes I think he's probably likely committed. And I'm sorry this has sort of gone off on a tangent, but it does all fit into this poor man's death and the police brutality. Not only you have to clean up the White House, but you have to clean up the police culture of America. The structure is corrupt. The officers are corrupt. I would say quite a lot of them are Trump supporters, far right wing, and I would say that becoming an American police officer is a really tantalizing job for someone who is a racist and wants to legally attack minority groups and people of color, because what happens if you kill a black African American, or pick on people who's from Mexico or Asians or any sort of minority people of color when you're an American cop? Not a lot happens to you. You just get a slap on the wrist, or you might get fired, and that's the worst thing that happens to you. And I know that I'm laying the boot into America, but surprise, all countries have a level of racism. We do, definitely. Unfortunately, Australia is probably a little higher up on the ladder than I would like them to be. You know, even in the last few days, there's been brutality against an Australian Aboriginal who is a more indigenous, sort of like American Indians, which I'm sure that they face brutality by the police too, as well. And, you know, that's happened just in Australia in the last couple of days. And I think it was the police commissioner or something like that. And he comes out and says, oh, he had a bad day. The police officer who sort of swift kicked this Aboriginal and sort of landed his head on the concrete. And, you know, he said, oh, the copper's having a bad day. You know, I think when you're a police officer, or especially a doctor or a surgeon, those are the type of jobs where you can't afford to have a bad day. You can't have a doctor that, you know, a surgeon that, oh, well, you know, there's 10% chance you might die during surgery because, you know, he's a little bit slack on certain stuff. You can't. You know, this is a job where you have to be pretty much damn perfect, or lives depend on it, and lives have been lost because of this. So, and it's really, really tough about those things. How can America fix itself? That's a very hard question. I think you need to start voting out these racists in your politics and things like that. Vote. You have to vote November. You know, you were pre-warned about Trump before the election, and unfortunately, I would say some of them didn't vote, and the other half voted for him for some reason. And you got 4 years of it, and I don't think America can really last another 4 years with Trump under these conditions, or the country will be broken for decades or possibly a century in terms of its social rights and their economy and things like that. Tens of millions have lost their jobs and that. And for me, I know that I can't do much to help the protesters and things like that. But, you know, this is my own small way of it, my own way of talking about it. And I know this is a bit of a ramble, but it's so corrupted. It's so hard for African Americans because they're always behind the eight ball. Like, you know, imagine if you're African American in America and you get into trouble and you can't call the police because they'll come around and beat you up instead. There's a higher chance, isn't there? You know, and that's something that as a white guy and in a white jumper, I would never have to deal with that sort of stuff again. You know, or ever I have. You know, that's something that I would never have to even think about or come across my mind. But we have to think about other people in different situations and how they live and things like that. And hopefully these protests make a change. The officer was second-degree murder, which makes sense. It was third-degree murder. That didn't make sense at all. So they have corrected that, which is good. And I really hope that things change in America because, you know, they're pretty much the laughing stock of the world at the moment. And hopefully this might bring a bit of a worldwide change. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but hopefully it starts the ball and chain, sort of making that push again. And because these protests, these things will keep going onwards, and police brutality will keep going if there is no police reform. What the protesters want is change. You know, African Americans not dying by the hands of police. But what they really need and what the country needs is police policy reform. That is what will make those changes, and a change of government, I would say, will be very helpful as well. So let's have a look at this thing. This is the best website where you can help. You can actually do something practical instead of just putting, you know, a black image online that doesn't really do anything, doesn't it? It's just waving the flag and go, oh yeah, I'm on your side, guys. Yeah, go. That's not going to be helpful when they're getting arrested and beaten up. So, ways you can educate. The map of protests. Now, this is probably not helpful if you're on other countries, so this shows up all the different spots. There's even ones here in Perth and Sydney, so close by, sort of thing. So we go back there, so you can sign petitions. Make sure that you read everything that this website's got to say. I think it's pretty legit. A lot of people have been sharing. It's really helpful too, as it groups everything you need to know. Texting Justin and Floyd, get in contact with the district attorney and the mayor, have all this. And we'll go back here. You can donate. Donate with no money. So that's basically a YouTube stream where you just let the ads play, and all the money that gets made from that YouTube video will go to that sort of thing. You can donate by streaming playlist, which is really good. So that doesn't cost you anything. International donation places to the victims, protesters, black-owned businesses, organisations, and other important places. We also have more resources, which is good. Black Lives Matter, all the other websites and things that will be very helpful. Mental health is obviously pretty important during this time, especially, well, the whole entire year, you would say. For protesters in America, we have lawyers, Stop the Bleed, treatments, all different tips. Actually, the tips from the Hong Kong protesters, this is, I think here. Okay, well, that's different. But there's some good tips from the Hong Kong protesters and how you go around that business of actually protesting and protecting yourself from the police. And you have FAQ. This is Iron, and 17 years old, still in school, so pretty smart. And no, don't pay her, donate. That's what she's saying. Can I make a card inspired by this one? Oh, well, there you go. That's pretty cool. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. So yes, that is... So that's the website you can go to. I will put that in the pinned comments. So you just go to the comments section and do that. And that's all I've got to say about the issue. I'll, keep helping to campaign in my own way. But yes, this has to end. Racism, discrimination, things like this. This stuff should have been taken care of decades ago. But it's human nature. It's what life is, unfortunately, but hopefully we can make another big push and make those changes. And my thoughts go out to everyone who's lost their lives over the years and decades, the people who've been beaten up for police brutality. It's just so sad to see history just repeat itself over and over. Sometimes you don't need to study history because you're seeing it happen, over and over again. So that is it for me, and I shall see you next time.